Praise be Jesus and Mary. Today's readings give a beautiful picture of the goodness of God, but we'll just focus our brief reflection on the invitation of Jesus that we heard in today's gospel taken from Matthew 11. Our Lord said in verse 28, he says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He's speaking to those who have grown tired of life, who struggle, who carry heavy burdens, essentially those who struggle in life and those who even struggle with life itself. He says that the solution to our problem actually isn't found in trying harder. That's what he says. He says that's what we often hear. In the confessional, we'll say, Father, I just have to try harder. I've got to doing this, at that, or being patient, or being kind, or charitable, or chasing away bad thoughts. I have to try harder. Well, there may be some truth to that, and sometimes we do have to try harder. But our Lord says that the real solution is what? He says it's to come to Him, which is actually a lot easier than trying harder, if you think about it. If you have problems, Jesus says, come to me. Come to me. Don't try to solve your problems in your own strength and in your own understanding. Come to me is what our Lord is saying. Come to me and I will give you rest, he says. The word rest there doesn't mean sleep, as helpful as sleep is. The word rest there is in the Greek text, it's anapao. It means to revive or refresh or to stop or to conclude something. So when life seems too heavy to bear or we don't know where to turn, Jesus says, turn to me. He says, turn to me and I will refresh you. I will give you strength, or I'll put an end to whatever problems are crushing you, whatever problems are crushing your spirit. And remember that Jesus will do that in His time, not in our time. In His time and in His way. Not necessarily in our way, not necessarily in the way that we would resolve our problems. And His time and His way are always the best way, the best time, because Jesus is perfect, and whatever He does and whenever He does it is perfect. It's perfect. So our Lord in today's gospel says that if we need help, if we need direction in life, or if we even need a reason to go on living, He says that we should come to Him and He'll give us something to help us out. Ironically, He says He's going to give us something else to carry to help us out. He's going to put another load on us. We go to Jesus with all of our burdens, and what does He say? What does He say? He says, take one more thing. He says in verse 29, He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. So we go to Jesus, and He puts His yoke on our shoulders. We've explained this before, but we can do it again. A yoke is a harness that you put on two animals so that they'll work together, in whatever they're doing, like plowing a field or hauling a wagon or something like that. If we go to our Lord, He's going to put upon us His yoke. And so, of course, a yoke requires two. So if we have to carry this yoke, who's the other person carrying it with us? Who is it? It's Jesus Himself, of course. He will work with us. He will carry the burden with us. He will accompany us, and He actually promises to carry the heavier part of the burden as well. In the ancient Jewish tradition, a yoke was also used as a metaphor. It also meant religious instruction. So the commandments of God, His wisdom, and His counsels are the yoke that we embrace, that we need to embrace if we want to find what? Well, Jesus says if we want to find rest for our souls. Rest for our souls, what does that mean? It means inner peace. It means inner strength. It also means a clear conscience and also hope for the present and the future. That's what the prophet Isaiah referred to in today's first reading when he said this. He said that, quote, "They that hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar as with eagle's wings. They will run and not grow weary, walk and not grow faint." Isaiah 40, verse 31. So we can hope in the Lord and have strength to live according to what is right and to do what is just. We can have that hope and that strength if we carry the yoke of Jesus. And our Lord says in verse 30, He says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." compared to the burdens or the standards of the society or the culture that they place on us, or even the burdens sometimes or the expectations that family members or friends sometimes place on us, or even sometimes that we place on ourselves. Compared to all that, the burden of Jesus is actually easy and light to carry. You know that sometimes we weren't always raised to think that way, but it's true. It's what our Lord says in the gospel. His burden is easy and light. Jesus does have a high standard for us, and he has that high standard because he thinks highly of us. But remember, he says that if we take his yoke upon our shoulders, meaning that if we live according to how he tells us and how he teaches us to live, he says then he will give us the strength to do everything. He will give us the strength in life. You know, in life we're called to rely on God's strength, not on our own strength, and not on the strength of people who aren't God either. Theologically, we can make an exception for Our Lady. We can rely on her because she's our mother, and it's a blessing to always have a mother who you can rely on. But nonetheless, we're called to trust in the Lord, not in ourselves. What's that verse from Proverbs that we repeat so often? What does it say? It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will do what? He says, he will direct your paths, says the author of Proverbs. Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 6. So living in the strength of God and trusting in him and in his understanding is the key not only to finding peace and spiritual rest, but it's actually the key to becoming a saint, to becoming the person that God created us to be. So may Our Lady grant us the grace to live in the strength of God as she did during her lifetime. Praise be Jesus and Mary.